Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be creating this Peace on Earth blending brush painting. Now blending brush painting is essentially just ink blending. However, instead of creating a gradient, we're going to actually create a scene for our card using our blending brushes and ink. So on screen I'm showing you the products that I'm going to be using to create today's painting. I also have an A2 size piece of white cardstock taped down to my work surface. I taped right along the edges of this cardstock. However, I am going to be trimming 1/4 inch off of each side when I place it on my white note card in the end. I'm starting off with this blending 3.5 inch circle stencil from Picket Fence Studios, and I am taping down the portion of the stencil that has the circle cut out. This is going to create my earth, and I'm going to do that first. I'm going to be using this Distress Oxide Speckled Egg for my first and lightest color. So I'm going to go ahead and ink up my brush, and I'm going to tell you this first step resulted from a craft fail. I will share with you in a little bit what that craft fail was. I'm blending that lightest color all along the edge of that circle, and I'm using small circular motions to make sure that that ink gets right up against the edge of the circle. I want to have a nice line. So my second color that I'm going to work with is chipped Sapphire Distress Oxide ink. I'm going to go ahead and ink up my brush and then bring that darker color in from the center of the bottom of the panel. I want to blend that through most of the circle, but I do want to leave a lighter edge on that circle. So I went ahead and just blended right up close to, but not on top of it. Then I'm going to come back in with this speckled egg one more time. I'm going to make sure that it's got a really nice blend around the edges, but it also leaves me with that nice light color. When I had done this particular card previously, I didn't feel like I had quite enough mid-tone blue in the card, so I'm using just a little bit of this Mermaid Lagoon Distress Oxide ink to bring in a little bit more of a mid-tone blue to the earth that we're creating here. So the next thing I'm going to add is a little bit of atmosphere to this earth in the form of clouds. So I'm taking a blending brush that is full of water, and I squeeze a little bit out off to the side so it kind of gives me a little spot to rinse my brush as I go. And I'm using circular motions to create clouds over the top of the earth. Now as I go, I am patting down the paper with a paper towel. This helps to remove any excess moisture that's sitting on top of the cardstock so that I don't have any pilling happen with my cardstock. And when adding this water to create the clouds, we're not looking for a true white. True white would be kind of hard to get to over the top of the ink, but we are just getting a little bit of a lighter color. I'm using tea dye Distress Oxide ink and one of the fine blending brushes from the Life Changing blending brushes to create land masses on my earth. Now the great thing with this particular color is that as I'm blending this over all those blues that I had used previously, it's kind of mixing in with those blues, so I'm getting a little bit of a greenish tint coming in on these land masses as well, which I really like. I'm not being very particular about the shape or the placement for these land masses. I just want kind of the idea of it, not necessarily trying to make this accurate. Now in this footage, you didn't see that I had actually paused for a little bit before I started doing this so that the water could dry on my surface. But if you're doing this while your cardstock is still a little bit damp, you want to use very, very delicate pressure. Now on these places where I had added the land masses and stuff, I'm just going through and adding a little bit more detail on the clouds to help give that marbled appearance. Now we're going to go ahead and switch out that stencil. I'm going to take that piece that we've been using off, and we're going to add the actual circle cutout portion back on top of the earth. This will protect that piece that we've already kind of completed while we work on actually giving it some space behind it. I'm starting out with the Speckled Egg Distress Oxide ink once more, and I'm going to go ahead right around the edge again. Now this is where my craft fail starts kicking in. I was having such a hard time with this ink and I couldn't quite figure out what was going on. So I tried to put a little bit more pressure on it, and then I started getting splotches. Well, come to find out, I had washed these brushes the night before I filmed this video. My brush, and only this particular brush, was still damp. So it was giving me fits trying to do my ink blending. I finally realized what was going on with it, and I switched out the brush so that I could get a smoother blend with it. We're adding enough ink on top of it that it does cover it up in the end. So I'm coming in with Stormy Sky Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to blend that around where I had blended the speckled egg. Again, I want to leave some of the speckled egg showing, but I do want that to transition smoothly into the Stormy Sky ink blending as well. So we're going to switch over back to the chipped Sapphire Distress Oxide ink. And I'm going to blend that up along the top, and then I'm going to start bringing that color down along the sides of this panel. We're coming back to the Stormy Sky once more, and we're going to blend that in to make sure that that gradient is very smooth. And once more to the speckled egg, again, same thing, we're just blending that in to make sure that we've got a smooth edge. So I'm removing that mask, and I'm going to use it again, so I don't want to take the tape off of it. But I'm going to bring back with that chipped sapphire, and I'm going to start darkening right around the edges of the panel. We're going to start bringing in a little bit more depth to it. We're also going to darken the edge where the bottom of that earth is on the panel. And finally, with the ink blending, we're going to come back in with the black soot. We're going to do this all around the edges. Again, this is just adding some depth. We want a little bit more contrast between the darkest portions of the panel and the light portions of the panel. Right here, I'm just using the brushes that I used. That one was the brush that I used for Speckled Egg, just to make sure that that little light portion was well blended again. I added the mask back on, and now I am using my blending brush to put a little bit of water off the side to make sure my brush is very, very wet, and I'm tapping it on my finger to create splatter on the background. I protected the earth portion that we had painted because I wanted to make sure that stars didn't look like they were sitting on the earth. So I went ahead and did that with water, and then I'm going to come in with my sparkle silk, and this is just going to add a little bit more dimension to the stars that are on there, because these are going to be very silvery and sparkly, and the ones that we have done with water are just a little bit paler. They look like they're a little bit further back. So before I can do anything else, I need to make sure that the edges of this cardstock are very dry. If you do not dry your cardstock, if it's damp along the edges, when you go to peel this tape off, your cardstock is going to tear. I have had many panels that I have torn severely when I've tried to take it off because the cardstock was still a little bit damp. And this is absolutely my favorite part. I love peeling that tape back and getting to see that white edge against the ink blending. That warning did come from experience. As I pull off this top bit of tape, I had a damp spot still on my cardstock, and I actually tore the surface of the cardstock. So this really wasn't a big deal because I was planning on trimming a 1/4 inch on all the sides of the card, but I did want to clip off that little torn bit so I didn't make it worse while I was trying to complete the card. But that is our blending brush painting for today. So we've created this kind of fun earth and space background, and I'm going to complete the card by using this Peace on Earth stamp from the Fancy Christmas Sentiment stamp set that just got released from Picket Studios. I'm going to white heat emboss that. And again, I'm trimming it down and then adding that to a white note card. So photo of both completed cards will be here at the end of the video. The products that I used today are going to be listed in the description on YouTube, or if you're on the blog, it'll be at the bottom of the blog post. Thanks for joining me today. Have a fantastic day and much love to you all.